So in March of 2012, we were working on a next generation console game.
It was really exciting, but it was a lot of work, and unfortunately, the game got canceled.
With these larger budgets, when you crash hard. And for a company the size of Obsidian to have, like a project canceled like that, it had a big impact on us financially.
It was really kind of sad, and so we, trying to pick ourselves up and figure out what we wanted to do, and we're kind of tossing around ideas. We tried to pitch that game again, with kind of changing the world and things like that. But what it comes down to is what are we gonna do about it? And the first thing is, well, we got to lay people off.
We're watching dozens of people clearing out their desks and leaving. A lot of people who had worked here for years and years. It really sucks in those circumstances because in some cases you have to lay off people who, they're great. Firing
or letting people go is just horrible. I mean, you talk to anybody who runs a business, it's just bad. And for me and the other guys that run Obsidian, it's doubly bad because it's a public statement of failure.
It's terrible for the people still at the studio as well because, now we don't have a project to work on. That's what we do here. We work on projects. And when you don't have a project, you feel like a lost soul, kind of.
But what's hard about it is that when we do a layoff, it's public. People know, all the publishers know, and we lose 2 points. We lose 5 points. We obviously, because it was obviously our fault, because that's the thing, right? It's like, well, we're the company that had to go through the pain, so we are the ones who must have failed.
And as the months went by after that cancellation and we still didn't get a project, it got worse and worse and worse. And we kind of had a date in mind where we're like, if we pass this date, then we're basically screwed, because we were basically going to run out of money.
Having this happen makes it even harder to go get the next thing, so that I can keep on paying the people and keep everybody employed that's still at the company even after the layoff.
We were all kind of, just coming to work just to come to work. We weren't actually working on anything.
I think for weeks after that, people were just really in a funk, and like I said, we were trying to get back into the rhythm of pitching to publishers and going and talking to publishers, but we had just been burned really badly, and it really made it difficult to go out and have high hopes for what we were going to do.
So whenever that happens, I mean, you eventually have to get to, like, what do? You eventually get to, like, screw it. Let's pack up the bags, let's turn the lights off, or you go, okay, what are we gonna do about it?
Chris Avalone and I think a few other people at the office, we were kind of discussing like, oh, we should do a Kickstarter, but nothing really got off the ground.
I had been looking at Kickstarter for a while personally, but a lot of other people had as well. I think Nathaniel Chapman, a guy who used to work here, actually was one of the biggest proponents of trying to use it for game development.
There's a few projects. I think there's a dice game that made like 200 grand on Kickstarter. We were just laughing about it. We're like, oh, we should put our game up on Kickstarter. Let's see what happens. If a dice game could make 200 grand, that means that there's something there.
And we talked about it, and then Double Fine did the Double Fine Adventure Kickstarter, and that pretty much said, yes, you can do it.
Because I think they made like $1 million in a day on Kickstarter. And so we were kind of like, holy crap.
It was so amazing to hear what the guys at Double Fine were able to do, just because it was like, wow, we could do this.
It reached a certain point where I said to the owners, if I can't be involved in it, that's fine, but we should do it.
I think he went to Fergus and said, we have to do a Kickstarter right now. Like, this is the time to do it, and you should put Adam on the project.
And then Chris Parker, one of the other owners here at Obsidian, he came and said, why don't we just tell them to do it?
So it was just me for, I want to say 2 months, and I was tasked to put together the pitch and kind of generate game ideas and kind of get all that together.
And at that point, it was Adam and Josh talking about it and figuring out what we could do and kind of even off in their own little world for a little while.
That day of doom that I was talking about earlier, that day of doom was fast approaching. So we had to hit it out of the park. The first thing I did was kind of got the leads of the studio together. I did a few different meetings, brainstorming meetings.
And we're like, you know, we've always wanted to go back and kind of make one of these traditional RPGs.
And in one of the meetings, I think it was a meeting with Fergus, Darren, Tim Kane, Josh, and Chris Avalone. I think 3 of us kind of had the same idea.
I said, you know, hey, why don't we make a game that feels like 2nd edition D&D Forgotten Realms, party-based. You make one character, you add companions into the story, like Baldur's Gate. It has that exploration feel where you're kind of out exploring the wilderness and finding all these little adventure locations, and you're tied into this personal story that affects the larger world.
I think people were on board with the high concept idea of bringing back the spirit of the Infinity Engine games. That's another thing with Kickstarter, is nostalgia is a big thing with Kickstarter. A lot of our fans were looking for this type of game. This type of game wasn't made for 10 plus years.
And so it was sort of like a double thing. Like, it got us to go make something something more traditional, something we love, but also now something we get to own.
So after that PowerPoint presentation, you know, the owners approved the concept of the game. So that was like a 3-week process of coming up with the pitch, the script for the pitch, editing it, and filming it,